So he somehow managed to convince a pilot to do a flyover around the area because he said that level of energy would burn out a clearing. And lo and behold, he found such a clearing about half a mile off the road that lit up everything, including the mountains nearby. And so he went home and calculated the amount of energy that that would require. It'd be like a nuclear reactor at full, throttle.
Stanford professor Dr. Garry Nolan recently did a podcast interview, and in it he spoke about a UFO incident I had never heard of. And it seems that Dr. Garry Nolan may be getting physical evidence from this UFO encounter. Kind of interesting, right? Something physical to study, right? So let's take a listen to this clip, and afterwards I've got a second clip from the interview because we're going to be talking about 0-point energy. Yep, hold on. Just calm down before you're going crazy in the comments. Just stop your comment. Stop typing. Relax. Hang on. Okay, so we're not there yet. Let's get to this first clip with Dr. Garry Nolan describing this UFO encounter. Here we go.
I've been talking to Jacques about a case that happened, I don't know, probably 40 years ago, of a scientist near one of the energy labs, the U.S. national labs, driving with his family between X and Y. I can't remember the name of the place. It's not that it's secret. And saw this extraordinary bright light about half a mile off the road that lit up everything, including the mountains nearby. And so he went home and calculated the amount of energy that that would require. It'd be like a nuclear reactor at full, throttle.
And that's just the luminosity. That's not accelerating.
That's just the luminosity.
Anything.
Right. Just the luminosity. And so he somehow managed to convince a pilot to do a flyover around the area because he said that level of energy would burn out a clearing. And lo and behold, he found such a clearing.
Oh, no way. So it was heat energy too. It wasn't just.
Yeah, I mean, the light, well, because the light, if it bounces off enough off of something. And so there was tree bark that has been obtained that, has a depth of burn to it that supposedly I'll get access to at some point. And so, of course, someone's going to say, oh, yeah, well, somebody burned it with a blowtorch or God knows what. I mean, I'll have to suffer those slings and arrows. But I don't care because I said, look, here's the chain of evidence. Here's what we get. It got burned by light. And I have to go look up to see how it is that you prove that something gets burned by light versus heat. Heat is just energy, radiation.
All right, so before we get to this 0-point energy, what do you think about this, right? This incident, so much power, right? Nuclear energy, like the power, I guess the equivalent of some sort of nuclear reaction of some sort, right? That kind of light, that kind of energy. And again, they're talking about just the luminosity, it has nothing to do with the propulsion of the craft or any other energy that the craft may require, right? And you're talking about a scientist near some, national labs or whatever he called it. Didn't know the exact places, but I mean, that's crazy, right? That kind of energy. And who else saw this, right? This must have been like crazy, right? So like, there's no other witnesses to this. Now, granted, I guess they're out in, what you might call the middle of nowhere, potentially, but still. But let's be real. Who cares about any of that? I mean, not who cares, but more importantly is that Dr. Garry Nolan could get some of these tree bark samples or whatever else, they allow him to get and study, right? Something physical. You can study the effects. Maybe it left something on the bark, right, that is detectable, and we're like, what is this? I mean, there's so many variations of the conclusions that can come from that, right? But it needs to be done. So I look forward to that. And I hope there's more incidents where physical evidence can be taken and studied, whether it be from the craft itself or surrounding areas, right? The surrounding foliage or surrounding objects that are there, right? A car, if it's nearby, something, anything, people, right? So yeah, I look forward to this, but look, and tell me what you think in the comments. Have you ever heard of this case? Do you know any more details? Let me know. Let's get to the 0 point energy, and I can already see people typing away, right? We've had Ashton Forbes on to talk about his 0 point energy device that is supposed to come out. And a lot of people have talked about 0 point energy. Okay, let's be real. A lot of people, and allegedly a lot of people, have lost their lives to bring it to the forefront, right? And here you got Dr. Garry Nolan also talking about it, right? It's been coming up a lot lately. I find that interesting. So look, here's some more comments from Dr. Garry Nolan about this idea of 0 point energy, right? Or free energy, whatever you want to call it. Take a listen.
But again, the energy requirements are more than what you would think you carry around in a battery. Now, maybe our concepts of batteries are primitive.
Yeah, it couldn't fit in any battery we can conceive of that fit inside that machine or whatever it was.
But I mean, there's Garrett Medell at the University of Chicago, eminent physicist, who claims to have structured a Casimir cavity in a way that is asymmetric and can collect energy from the 0 point field. Claims.
So that means he's just got a geometric shape that can create thrust or something, do work just out of ambient energy in the.
And he gets a voltage. And they're microstructures. They're ultra tiny, and so he made literally millions of them in a row, and he gets out a decent thing. But they stop working after a certain amount of time, and when you look at them locally, you find that there's been local destruction.
Interesting. That's like you would think where from having done whatever work they've done.
Having done whatever work you're doing, it's just you burn out the local thing. And there's people like the people at Brilliant Energy who have basically conceptualized it in a much larger way, and that they fix the problem of local work eating into the thing by creating the energy in a local sort of plasma field, something they call some people would call an exotic vacuum object, that seems capable of asymmetrically pulling energy out of nothing. Now, again, it's just claims. I mean, I like reading this stuff because it's cool.
Sure. Yeah.
But they have companies and they are moving those forward. And these aren't stupid people. And if you look at the laboratories that they've got set up to do this stuff, you see the beginnings of an energy infrastructure that would change everything. And so, fast forward humanity 5,000, 10,000 years, I doubt we're going to be using oil.
So there you have it, y'all. I really enjoyed making this video. Please go check out the link in the description and check out the full podcast interview with Dr. Garry Nolan. It's honestly a fascinating interview because you got one PhD interviewing another, right? So I found it fascinating. So please go check it out. Link in the description. And again, as always, this was so much fun to talk about, right? I don't know why I just said it like that, but I did. 0 point energy, right? UFO encounter with just this immense amount of energy coming, out of it, and a scientist like calculating it and being like, this is impossible, right? Let's go look for a clearing that must have left something. Oh, look, we found something. What more do you want? This scientist went all Fox Mulder on this, and he went and got evidence and went and checked it out, convinced a pilot to fly him around. I could never convince a pilot to fly me around for something, right? But he's a scientist and has some credentials, so I think he got away with it. But anyway, yeah, I look forward to where this goes, what's going to happen with this, and we'll follow up, right? Because this is it's exciting, right? Again, I look forward to more physical evidence being studied. Who wouldn't want that, regardless of where you stand on this, right? The real question then becomes the results and what do we do with them and do we accept them and blah, 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 right? That's a different story. We're not there yet. But anyway, tell me what you think in the comments and tell me what you think in the comments about the 0 point energy stuff. Curious to hear. I know you've already typed away. All right. So anyway, all right, y'all. We'll see you guys on tomorrow's video. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep.